So we are in North London, Camden, at Jazz Cafe, and tonight Mark deClive-Lowe is performing his album 6 Degrees from start to finish to celebrate 25 years. It was released in 2000, the year 2000, and I'm sitting with him in his dressing room right now.
Yo, hello.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's kind of crazy when you can say like a record's 25 years old.
Yeah.
To me anyway, like quarter century, what?
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole adult, you know?
It's a whole fully grown adult, yeah.
It was funny actually, I was listening to The Breakfast Show with Nick Grimshaw, and he had Soul Wax come on to celebrate their 30th anniversary. They had no idea that the record had turned 30 or something. They were like, oh, hold on, why are we here? But do you feel the years moving in a celebratory way? Do you enjoy looking back?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really proud of my body of work over the last 25 plus years. It's a record which really captured a moment for me and told a story about a specific time in my life. And I think having that documented and captured, and also the way I was introduced to the global audience, is really special. So it still feels like a really special record to me and one I'm super proud of.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it in the live form right now. I think we can hear El Shamida rehearsing.
Yes, she's sound checking.
She's sound checking right now. Who else is on the lineup? We've got the Jazz Refresh DJs as well. And who's in the band?
I have Maeli Manzanza with me on drums and Matt Daldin on bass. A couple of Kiwis. And the album. The album started. I made it in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And it was very much. It wasn't so much a New Zealand album as that's where I was originally from, and that I made it after I traveled the world for a year and went back there. And it actually came out in New Zealand a year before it came out globally, which makes it 26 years old. But given all that, it's nice to have Maeli and Matt and just the Kiwi and Tibetan connection.
Yeah. Can you transport me then to, whether it's 1999 or 2000, that sort of time frame, when that record was made and being released, like personally and professionally, who was Mark deClive-Lowe?
Good question. Well, if we go back to 1998, I spent that year traveling the world. I was awarded a scholarship which basically paid me to travel the world for a year and chase my musical dreams.
Oh my God, does that still exist?
It doesn't, unfortunately. It was actually corporate funded in New Zealand. And they give it to 5 young New Zealanders every year across all sorts of disciplines. Like in my year, there was a Olympic equestrian hopeful, a nuclear physicist, a ballerina, so it was a very kind of wide range of people. But my project was to travel the world for a year and go to musical meccas. So I remember I was in San Francisco at first. I went to a club and I heard Jazzanova for the first time. This is early 1998. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It just sounded so fresh and so vibey. Then I go to Havana. I was in Cuba for just over a month, maybe 2 months. And I'd never been somewhere like that where the music is, the music's just pouring out of the land and the streets and the people, and it's the heartbeat of the country, right? And so Cuba was an amazing experience, spending time with Chucho Valdez and other great musicians there. Then I come to London, and before I met the crew which would become my musical family here, I reconnected with Dave Angel, who I met in New Zealand. Did a track with Dave Angel. Then I catch up with Nathan Haynes, who I knew from New Zealand. Nathan was like, I'm on my way to go into a session for Metalheads. Do you want to come and jump on the session? So I went and did that with him. And then he was saying, I want you to meet my mate Phil. My mates Phil and Patrick. They had this night called Inspiration Information. And of course that was Phil Asher and Patrick Forge. They had a weekly night at the Notting Hill Arts Club, named after the Shuggie Otis album, Inspiration Information. And I went down there, and it's that's exactly what it was. It was so much inspiration and so much information.
Do you remember what you heard?
I do remember specifically a Gene Harris record. They were playing a lot of 70s music. There was a Gene Harris kind of synth funk record. And as a young jazz musician, I knew of Gene Harris as a 50s kind of acoustic jazz player. So I remember running over to Patrick and being like, what is this? And he holds up this record, it's Gene Harris. What the heck? Couldn't believe it. But so Nathan introduced him to Phil Asher. This is Phil, he makes beats. This is Mark, he plays keys. The next day we're in the studio remixing For Hero.
Wow.
So over a week, it was this whole range of experiences which pulled me right into this culture in London. And then Phil introduces me to Bugs in the Attic, to Digo, to IG Culture. And I just had this amazing baptism of community. Then I go to New York, and Phil, before I went, introduced me to Joe Clausel. So then Joe calls me in the studio, and Francois K's the engineer, and we're remixing Sang de Barona, Cesaria Evora. And then I'm going to Japan, and it was just an amazing year of just experiencing all these amazing things that I never imagined possible.
Yeah.
And I was able to contribute and be part of the creative process.
Yeah.
So then I get back to New Zealand after a year of traveling. Actually, in Japan on the way home, important point, is I bought an MPC. And I'd seen all these guys in London with samplers and drum machines making beats, and I just loved it, so I bought one on the way home. Get back to New Zealand, and essentially made a soundtrack journal of the year I just experienced. And that became this album, 6 Degrees.
Yeah.
So in that, it's got the jazz elements, things I love about hip-hop and jungle and house music and broken beat. It was just this mishmash of all these things that I'd experienced over that year.
What a beautiful way to capture an incredible experience. I mean, like a kind of like life-changing, once in a lifetime.
Totally life-changing.
Experience. I think we have to play a track, and actually, of course, the opening track is Round Trip.
Round Trip?
Round Trip, Mark deClive-Lowe. We're here at Jazz Cafe having a conversation celebrating 25 years of his album 6 Degrees, and we just played the opening track, Round Trip, and heard about the round trip that you that you went on. I wanna drill a little bit backwards though, because and think about your formative years. And being in New Zealand and the Pacific Island community that would have been around you. We did a global sound show about the Pacific Island music.
Oh, wow.
And it was one of our most spoke about shows from that season. I would go out, people like, I'd never even, had heard about these artists or heard about this style of music or heard these stories in general. What was it like for you, and what imprint did it have on you?
So I grew up in Auckland, and I was playing piano from 4 years old. So I was learning classical music, and then fell in love with my dad's jazz collection, his record collection. But I had this amazing moment in high school when I was 14, and a friend of mine walked up to me before school with his Walkman and put his headphones on me, hit play, and it was the first Guy album. It was Teddy's Jam, and I'd never heard anything like it. I'd never really heard contemporary black music. All my friends would listen to guitar music, and I didn't quite get it. So I hear this music, it just completely blew my mind. And then I started playing around with drum machines and keyboards, in a way what became a precursor to what I do later on. But I'm 14 years old, don't know what I'm doing, listening to all this New Jack Swing and then Native Tongues hip hop. And then I go to there was some talent contest thing where I did a one-man band synth kind of...
Was you like a Prodigy child?
It was probably awful.
It was given Prodigy.
It was probably awful.
Just playing a bit of this, playing a bit of that.
But after I played, these Samoan kids come up to me. They'd also performed, and they had a really dope kind of New Jack Swing kind of band. And they came up to me, they were like, "Oh, that was wicked, you should come out to the house and jam." So I remember going out to their place, and it was the first time I'd experienced this sense of community through music. And they were all Samoan kids, and they were part of a broader music community. It was called the Voodoo Rhyme Syndicate, with all these kind of hip hop and R&B bands, and it was this mix of Maori kids, Tongan kids, Samoan kids, Niuean, Fijian, like all sorts. And then here was I, this like little, Japanese New Zealander kid, kind of joining the fray. But to be part of that, and this is like 1990. And recording demo tapes and doing little gigs and wanting to be Belle Biv DeVoe, whatever it might be. It was a really magical time, and seeing how, I think that was my first experience of seeing how culture is such an essential part of community creative expression.
I like, there's a quote that I took from, which I'm going to write out and stick somewhere, from your interview of Rolling Stone, which is, "The space in between everything is where you find yourself."
Yeah.
That's pretty mic drop.
And I first learned that through copying a J Dilla beat. It was probably, it was early. It was like when the Slum Village album first was circulating on bootleg. And I remember trying to copy a Dilla beat, and I couldn't quite get it. And there were aspects which I was achieving it, and there were aspects where I wasn't. But I realized it was a space where I was missing. That's where I existed. Yeah. And I think that's a really interesting thing in any creative process, but in music specifically, where I think we live in a culture where a lot of younger generation musicians are kind of being taught to aspire to replicate, as opposed to the idea that it's okay to miss the target. And the point where you miss it is where you're going to find your own voice and your own journey. And
that's kind of almost the same for the Dilla and the drums. It's the swing. It's in the swing.
Exactly.
That's the beauty and the genius of it.
Yeah.
Right? Wow. Let's play something from Heritage. What should we play?
Let's go with the opening track from the first Heritage album. It's called The Offering.
hanging out with Mark deClive-Lowe, just travelling through your career, literally, the places you've been and the music that you've made. 23 albums, is that still the number?
I don't even know.
You've
I
stopped
mean,
counting.
it's like, how do you, yeah, I don't know what my record count is.
But what is it then, because that is a prolific amount of music to have released, and not just, singles, and I follow you on Bandcamp, and actually I came to Broken Beat later. And I love it, I'm obsessed with it, and I kind of hold it up as this kind of golden era that I'd missed by about 5 or 6 years.
I'm sorry you missed it.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
But through Bandcamp, I'm able to kind of to find music, look back at music reissues, or obviously Co-op guys are super active on there as well. So you are prolific in the amount of music that you release. So the creativity and that sort of process of you going into the studio that much, like, what is it?
I mean, it's being a musician and making music is second nature to me. I've played piano all my life, so to sit down and play is a very natural process for me. It's how I am most comfortable expressing myself. I love the written word, but I prefer this world of sound where it's not limited by words and vocabulary. So, I mean, for me, the records, and 6 Degrees is a great example of this, as is Heritage and so many of the records. They're records of moments in time. And I think it's the same if someone journals every day and then they have 20 years of journals. They look back. Yeah, they'll just capture the moments, and they reflect what they were searching for at that time, and the experiences they were having, the successes, the failures, all of it. For me, I just channeled that into the music.
And just for the younger listeners, but also the listeners that were there at the time as well, what was it so special about London, about that broken beat scene? What, like, if you could just put it into, like, just tell me what was happening, what people were doing, what they're wearing, what they go to.
It was tribal. I think that's the word. It was so tribal. We had a party every Sunday called Co-op. It started at Velvet Rooms and ended up at Plastic People, and it was community in that we were all there for the same reason. It was tribal and it was super visceral. You were hearing music that you'd never heard before. It was music that was made that week or that day. And as music makers in the community, when we'd hear someone's tune, it would be so inspiring that we wouldn't try and bite it or rip it off. That would inspire us to make something different. So everyone's kind of reacting to each other, but coming from different perspectives. And I mean, at first it wasn't all the same tempo. It wasn't subscribing to one dominant kind of rhythmic figure. It was almost like, it was like jazz. For me, when I met that whole crew, I remember thinking, this is like every kind of music I've ever loved put through a blender and reimagined in a way I never thought was possible. And so that's something that I can't say that I've experienced much. I experienced it when I first heard jungle.
And jungle is very prevalent, sort of the beat pattern obviously is very prevalent.
Absolutely.
On 6 Degrees.
Yeah, it's funny for me now where I could be playing an acoustic jazz gig, but my broken beat experience still feeds into that, and I feel like it's always there, no matter what I'm doing. It could be like a experimental ambient thing, and there's still kind of sonic signatures or little ideas which definitely come from that time I had in London.
Let's play Restless, because I feel like that maybe that's like a love letter to that time.
It is. Yeah, R.I.P. Phil Asher, rest his soul.
Clive-Lowe on Six Music with me right now. We're at the Jazz Cafe. Hanging out in the dressing room. Got your rider all stacked already for tonight's show. I'd love to play something from San Claudio. That was a brilliant album. I've got the vinyl. Someone sent it from your team, so thank you. I should have brought it to get signed and done a Giles, but I didn't have enough room in my bag. But the creator has a master plan too.
Yes.
The closing track on that. Can you tell me a little bit about the album and that track?
Yeah, so Hotel San Claudio is a collaboration with an amazing vocalist, flute player, sample flipper Melanie Charles, and drummer producer Shigeto. And the three of us, we played a festival together in Italy. And so we spent a week in Italy staying at a Hotel San Claudio. And we spent this week rehearsing to play the festival. And the whole week we were just eating amazing food, having 5-hour lunches while we're talking about what we're going to have for dinner, as you do in Italy. And the music was a byproduct. So that's what I love about that project most of all is it's the friendship, and we play music together for fun. And so the set we put together for the festival essentially became the album. We played one more time, doing a double bill with the Sunrise Orchestra in New York, and then went into the studio the next day and basically recorded the live set. So that became the record. I had a lot of Ferro Sanders on the brain at the time, so I wanted to incorporate some of his work and pay homage, but kind of flip it a little bit. So yeah, it's a really special record, and we love to play together. And actually in November, we'll be at Ronnie Scott's together.
Wow. Look at that.
Yeah.
Full circle.
Full circle.
Back in London. So if you're listening to this interview and you're like, oh, I miss Mark deClive-Lowe, well, then November, Ronnie Scott's, and you can experience that project.
Yes.
And the artists within it as well. Thank you so much, Mark deClive-Lowe, and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
MdC, aka Mark deClive-Lowe. We were in conversation with him from Jazz Cafe, celebrating 25 years of his seminal album, 6 Degrees. We ended on the track The Creator Has a Master Plan Part 2 from his album Hotel San Claudio that came out in 2023. And if you missed it, he's going to be performing that at Ronnie Scott's with the full gang, Shigeto and Melanie Charles in November. That's going to be a real sort of spiritual moment. Thank you so much to Mark deClive-Lowe. It's Jamz Supernova on 6 Music.